night I realized the bus wasn't taking me home was the same night I understood I hadn't been alive for a very long time. I didn't feel dead. No one ever does, I suppose. If the world had changed after I left it, it hadn't bothered to tell me. Night still fell the way it always did. Slow, heavy, pressing itself into the city like a shroud. And I still walk the same route home from the late shift, shoulders stiff, thoughts drifting, breath rising in faint white clouds. Except that night, something felt thinner, like the world was stretched too far, like its fabric had begun to fray. Every sound seemed slightly delayed. Every shadow seemed to move a fraction after I did, catching up just a moment too late. I told myself I was tired. I didn't question it. The street was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels deliberate. The bus stop waited at the corner, an old metal frame with peeling stickers and a timetable long torn away. I'd stood there 1,000 times. The streetlight above it flickered in a soft, erratic rhythm, as if breathing. Then I heard it. The engine. Deep, slow, almost mournful. A sigh more than a machine. Headlights pushed through the fog, blurred to the edges like they were shining through water. The bus emerged behind them, boxy, old, its paint dulled into a tired gray blue. The number glowed on the top panel, 77. But the destination line beneath it was blank. No street, no district, not even out of service, just empty. The bus stopped in front of me. The doors opened before I lifted a hand, a gesture of recognition. Habit pulled me forward. The warmth inside hit me first, thick, stale, clinging to my skin like breath on a window. The lights hummed overhead. They didn't flicker, but they didn't feel steady either. They felt watchful. I tapped my card against the reader. It beeped, but the small display stayed blank. No fare, no numbers, nothing. The driver didn't react. He sat motionless, both hands on the wheel, head angled forward. The brim of his cap hid his eyes, and his stillness felt practiced, as if moving too much might attract something unwanted. "Evening," I said automatically. He nodded once, slow, heavy, almost reluctant. I stepped deeper into the bus. There were 5 passengers. A man in a rain-dark coat sitting near the front. A young woman clutching a tote bag at her knees. An older man staring at his palms as though waiting for them to speak. A teenager with headphones on, face pale blue in the dim light. And at the very back, a figure I couldn't make out at all. A shape more than a person. Still, folded into the shadows. No one looked at me. Not unusual for a night bus. Still, something was wrong in their posture. They were too quiet, too still, like animals that sensed a predator nearby. I sat in a seat halfway down, my old spot, 3rd row on the left. I'd sat there so often it felt like muscle memory guiding me. The bus lurched forward. We rolled through the fog, but within seconds the route looked unfamiliar. We passed a row of storefronts I'd never seen before. One boarded, one with a sign too faded to read, one glowing with a strange amber light. We turned left where we always turned right. We dipped into a side street that used to be a pedestrian path. I frowned at the window. "This wasn't here," I whispered. The glass distorted the outside world. Buildings seemed to lean inward. Streetlights stretched taller than they should. Cars parked along the curb looked older, faded, out of time. I pressed the stop button. The red light clicked on. The bus didn't slow. The raincoat man stood up suddenly, rising in a single sharp movement that sent a tremor through the air. He didn't look around. He didn't meet anyone's eyes. He simply walked, straight toward the front of the bus. I expected him to wait by the door. He didn't stop there. He walked past the yellow line, past the driver, and into the narrow space between the driver's seat and the windshield. There was no door there, but he stepped forward anyway. His outline blurred, thinned, smudged like ash blown by a soft breath. And then he was gone. Not stepped off, Not exited. Gone. The young woman gasped softly. The teenager pulled his headphones off. The old man shut his eyes tight, as if bracing for something inevitable. I gripped the seat in front of me. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. No one answered. The bus hummed deeper, the sound vibrating through the floor. We drifted through the city, or something wearing the city's shape. The buildings outside no longer aligned with any street I knew. They were darker, broken in places, disjointed like fragments from an old memory stitched together. Fog pressed against the windows, thicker now, heavy enough to feel like fingers dragging along the glass. The teenager shot to his feet next. He didn't hesitate. He walked the same path the raincoat man had, past the aisle, past the driver, into the empty air at the front. He dissolved like breath on glass. The bus didn't stop. The old man began to cry quietly. His tears left dark lines down his face. He clutched the sides of his seat like it was the only solid thing left in the world. "I don't want to go again," he whispered. "Not this time. Please, not this time." His voice broke. I thought I would sleep through it. Sleep through what? The young woman stood next. Her tote bag slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a soft, defeated sound. She didn't pick it up. She didn't look at any of us. As she passed me, I saw her eyes, wide, reflective, seeing something just ahead of her, something pulling her forward. She stepped into the front space and disappeared. Only the figure in the back remained, only me and him. The lights flickered for the first time, slow, dim, as if struggling to stay awake. The air felt heavier, the engine groaned, the windows shuddered faintly in their frames. I turned slowly. The shadow in the back row was sitting very still, but I could make out more of him now. The shape of shoulders, the turn of a head, the hint of a face. And something about him felt familiar. Too familiar. The bus slowed, not to a stop, just enough for the world outside to sharpen through the fog. I looked, and my blood ran cold. The buildings outside were not part of any living city. They were shapes I remembered only from nightmares, or memories, or somewhere in between. Blackened brick, charred wood, a collapsed roofline, and at the center, the burned-out shell of my old apartment building. The night of the fire came back in bright, terrible rushes. The heat, the choking smoke, the distant shouts, the cracking sound of beams giving way, my own breath burning as I tried to reach the door. Then nothing. Only nothing. My hand slipped from the seat. I felt the truth beginning to rise. I turned back toward the last passenger. He was no longer in the shadows. He was sitting 2 rows closer, head lowered, breathing steadily, patiently, as if waiting for me to finally notice him. The driver spoke without turning. "We're nearly there." The lights dimmed. The world outside flickered like an old film reel. The last passenger lifted his head. The light above him seemed to hesitate, then settled into a dim, steady glow that revealed just enough of his face for me to see the unsettling truth. His jawline, his brow, the shape of his mouth. They were mine, but his skin told a different story. One side looked normal, too normal. The other was twisted by heat and char, tight and uneven, as if a flame had left fingerprints there. He watched me with a calm that felt patient and old. "You made it back," he said. His voice wasn't identical to mine, but it echoed me the way a memory does, warped by time, softened by distance. I swallowed hard. "Back where?" He raised his eyes toward the window. The burned building outside drifted slowly by, illuminated in fog-thickened streetlight. Charred brick, collapsed beams, windows like empty sockets. "Home," he said. Something cold pressed into my spine. "That's not my home anymore," I said. "I left. I moved. I haven't lived there in..." My throat tightened. "How long?" he asked softly. I didn't know why I answered, but the number came anyway. 7 years. He nodded once, as if that confirmed something. And tell me, he said quietly, how many nights since you stopped dreaming about the fire? The question hit like a weight dropped into deep water. I searched my memory. Nothing. The dreams that once smothered me had vanished, not faded, stopped. You don't remember, he said. Not an accusation, a fact. He stepped into the aisle. The bus seemed to react, lights dimming, the floor vibrating slightly harder. I tensed. You look like me, I said. He shook his head with a faint, sad smile. No, you look like me. The driver's voice slid down the aisle like cold air. Not long now. Fog thickened around the windows, smearing the outside world into a memory. The burned building drifted past again, closer this time. Too close. My double nodded toward it. You ever wonder why you kept taking this bus? He asked. I take it because it's the last night route, I said. Because it goes near my flat. It goes near where you used to live, he corrected. Used to. The world tilted. I pressed my palms into my thighs, grounding myself. I haven't been back since the fire, I whispered. There was nothing left. He studied me. And yet, he said, here we are. The bus engine deepened into a low, rumbling drone. Outside, fog wrapped around the windows like hands pressing inward. My double lowered himself into the seat across from me. The leather groaned under him, which somehow made everything more terrifying. He wasn't a hallucination, not a ghost flickering through light. He sat. He breathed. He existed. For 7 years, he said, you've walked around pretending things made sense. Pretending routines meant you were alive. I am alive, I said. He didn't argue. He didn't have to. When was the last time you felt the cold? He asked. I opened my mouth, stopped. I feel it, I said. I notice it. But you don't shiver, he said. I stared at him. When was the last time someone bumped into you? He continued. Crowded street, train platform, busy crossing. Images flickered through my mind. Rooms full of people who seemed to part around me. Streets where no one brushed my shoulder. Doorways where everyone moved aside without looking. My stomach tightened. I thought they were just polite, I said weakly. He smiled sadly. You've been drifting for a long time. So long you stopped noticing the edges slipping out of focus. He nodded at my bag. Check your wallet. My hands felt numb as I reached down. The wallet wasn't the one I'd bought recently. It was older, a little cracked. The one I'd had before the fire. Inside, no ID, no bank cards. Just a warped travel pass melted along one edge. I remembered it. I'd had it in my pocket that night. I swallowed hard. This doesn't mean anything. He raised his eyebrows gently. Then look outside. The bus drifted past the burned building again, no longer as ruins, but as the night it burned. I saw the top floor window where I lived. Orange light pulsed behind it, soft at first, then brighter. A shape moved inside the room. My own silhouette pressed against the window, hands trying the latch. I felt the heat on my skin, felt the air thicken, felt old panic stirring like a ghost kicking in its sleep. My double watched me quietly. You didn't make it out, he said. The words sank into me like ink into water. That's not true, I whispered. I woke up in hospital. I remember. Do you? He asked. Which hospital? What doctor? What nurse? Who visited you? The names dissolved on my tongue, faces blurred, rooms smeared into fog. My pulse hammered. I've been walking around for 7 years, I said. Working, shopping, eating, sleeping. How could I do that if I was... Because you tried, he said softly. So hard you tore yourself in half. Part of you escaped. Part of you stayed in the burning room. And the world didn't know which version to keep. The bus hummed, low and guttural. Tonight, he said, You wandered too close to the truth, too close to where you ended. And the bus, I whispered. He looked up toward the driver. The bus brings the lost pieces back together. The driver spoke again, voice scraping like something old being dragged across concrete. Next stop, final return. The burned apartment building appeared outside one more time, not drifting past now, waiting. My double rose from his seat. This is where I stayed, he said, nodding toward the dark outline of my old room. Burning, looping, reliving what wouldn't end. He touched my arm gently. And this is where you left, without accepting you left. The bus slowed to a crawl. My throat closed. I don't want to go, I said. You don't have to, he replied softly. Not if you choose something else. But you can't keep pretending. You can't ride this bus forever. If you do, the part of you that still knows your own name will fade. He pointed at the empty aisle. You've seen them. The ones who walk forward without recognition. The ones who vanish without protest. They waited too long. The doors hissed open. No sound waited outside. No breeze, no distant life. Only the silence of something that had died violently and never moved on. My double stepped aside. You can go back, he said. Face it. Finish it. Accept what happened. Or you can stay on the bus. What happens if I stay? I asked. The driver answered without turning. You stop caring, stop thinking, stop remembering, until you're just another shape in the back seat waiting for your turn. The bus vibrated, almost pleading. Decide, my double whispered. The burned building loomed, charred bones exposed, heat rising from memories instead of flames. I'm scared, I said. Good, he replied. The scared ones still have something left. I stepped into the aisle. Every part of me felt heavy with choice, with truth, with the weight of 7 years of drifting between worlds. The doors waited. The dark waited. My double waited. I took a breath that didn't feel like mine anymore. I'm ready, I whispered. The open doors waited. Cold air seeped in, but even the cold felt old, stale, like it had never touched anything alive. Outside, the burned building loomed in silence. No police tape, no construction fences, no signs, just char and emptiness and a sky that seemed darker above that patch of ground than anywhere else. I stayed seated. My fingers tightened on the edge of the seat until the plastic creaked. I can't, I said. The word came out smaller than I wanted. My double watched me with that same careful patience, the patience of someone for whom time had stopped mattering. You already did, he said softly. Once. That's why I exist at all. He nodded toward the ruin outside. You stayed in there, he went on, a long time. Longer than feels possible. Too long for a body. Not long enough for whatever this is. He gestured vaguely at himself. You screamed, you burned, you begged, you clawed for an exit that wasn't there, and you never really escaped, you just divided. He looked back at me. Part of you stayed screaming in that room, he said. Part of you stepped out into a life you insisted was still yours. You walked and worked and rode buses and pretended to forget the crack in the world behind you. His eyes softened. The bus didn't create this, he added. It just caught up with it. The driver cleared his throat, the sound dry and weary. Time's up, he said. There was no anger in it, no urgency. Just a tired certainty, like someone reminding you the shop is closing in 5 minutes, even though you've been there all day. I stood up. My legs trembled, but they held. I moved into the aisle, every step feeling like it pulled me deeper into something thick and unseen. The world narrowed to the line between my seat and the doors, between the life I'd convinced myself I was living and the moment it had actually ended. My double stepped aside for me, giving me room. You can go back in, he said. Finish what you never let yourself finish. Remember the way it really ended. I looked at him. What happens to you if I do? I asked. He shrugged one shoulder. I don't know, he said. Maybe I stop burning. Maybe I stop existing like this. Maybe I finally get to stop riding this route and watching you circle. He smiled faintly. Maybe the bus moves on. And if I stay on the bus? I asked. His expression dimmed. Then eventually, you'll stop asking questions, he said. You'll stop noticing the route, the fog, the other passengers. You'll stop knowing your name. You'll become someone who just stands up when it's time, walks to the front, steps through without ever wondering why. He nodded toward the empty seats. We've had a lot of those. The engine rumbled underfoot like distant thunder. My gaze drifted to the open doors again. The burned building waited outside like a mouth. I tried to remember what I'd been so desperate to protect the night of the fire. A laptop, some papers, a box of old photographs, a drawer full of things that had felt irreplaceable and now seemed meaningless next to the weight of breath and bone. I don't want to go back to that room, I whispered. I don't want to feel that again. He nodded. I know, he said. I didn't either. The honesty in his voice hurt. I took one step toward the doors. The air grew hotter. Not the sharp, immediate heat of a flame, but the stale, suffocating heat of a closed room filling with smoke. The taste of it coated the back of my tongue, bitter, chemical, familiar. I heard echoes, my own voice shouting, the crack of splitting wood, the distant, muffled sound of someone banging on a door that wouldn't open. I froze, one foot on the line between bus and street. My double stood just behind me now. Not pushing, not pulling, just there. You've already burned, he said quietly. This won't make it worse. It will just make it true. I swallowed. I'm scared, I said. Good, he replied. The dead that aren't afraid anymore. Those are the ones that never leave the bus. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I let everything go slack. The denial, the pretending, the stubborn insistence that I still had errands to run and rent to pay and shifts to work. I let myself feel the wrongness I'd been stepping around for years. The silence when I walked into rooms. The way air moved around me instead of against me. The way my reflection sometimes lagged a fraction of a second behind. I wasn't alive. Not really. Not the way I'd kept insisting I was. But I wasn't gone either. Not completely. Not until I chose. I exhaled. Okay, I whispered. I stepped down onto the street. The ground felt strange, solid, but insubstantial at the same time, like standing on the memory of a floor instead of the floor itself. Heat rose around my ankles, coiling up my legs. The world dimmed at the edges, narrowing to the shape of the ruined building in front of me. Behind me, the bus waited. My double stood at the doorway, watching. You don't have to go alone, he said. He stepped down beside me. For a heartbeat, we stood shoulder to shoulder, two versions of the same man separated by a single terrible night. Will it hurt again? I asked. He thought about it. Maybe, he said. But if it does, it'll be the last time. We walked together toward the entrance. The doorway yawned open, more hole than door now. Each step inside thickened the heat, thickened the air, thickened the echo of panic my body remembered even if my mind had tried to erase it. The bus doors hissed behind us. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I could feel it, waiting a moment longer, then easing away, engine low and tired, carrying its empty seats back into the fog to wait for whoever tried to outrun their ending next. Inside, the dark wrapped around us like smoke. The stairs creaked beneath our feet, even though the last time I'd climbed them, they'd already been burning. The walls flickered with the suggestion of flames that weren't quite here, not quite now, but close enough to make my lungs tighten. Do you remember yet? He asked softly. I did. The last living moment came back in painful, perfect detail, the heat surging up the stairwell, the window refusing to open, my fingers slipping on the latch, the door handle too hot to touch, the the sickening realization that there was nowhere left to go. I remembered the way the world shrank to the size of that room, the way each breath felt like swallowing knives, the way every part of me had screamed to get out, get out, get out. I stopped. We stood in what had once been my living room. Ash drifted lazily in the air, never settling. Shadows of furniture flickered in and out of existence. The wallpaper peeled and unpeeled in slow, ghostly cycles. "This is where I stayed," he said. "And this," I replied quietly, "is where I left." We turned to face each other. For the first time, we looked fully alike. No more softened edges, no more mismatched ages in our clothes, just two halves finally overlapping. "Are you ready?" he asked. I nodded. "Stay with me," I said. "Just stay with me until it's done." He smiled. "I never left," he said. The heat rose. The room brightened, not with light, but with intensity. Every detail sharpened, every crack, every scorch mark, every failed escape route. The sound of the fire roared back in full, a living thing wrapping itself around us. This time I didn't run from it. I stood in the center of that final moment and let it reach me, let it take me, let it close the gap between the part of me that had never stopped burning and the part that had refused to admit it. For the first time since the night of the fire, there was no split, no division, just one self, just one ending. The flames rose and then went out, completely. No smoke, no heat, no noise, just a quiet, soft, unburdened dark. Somewhere, very far away, a bus door hissed open for someone else. I wasn't there to see it,